All right, well, welcome everyone to the Jacksonville Urban League Center for Advocacy and Social Justice. This evening, we have a really interesting program, interesting in the sort of negative side of interesting in a way. It's pointing out some significant problems we have in our minority communities relative to the environment, but we have some excellent speakers. We're very grateful that they've joined us, and in a moment we will have Nicola Steelnock introduce them. But I wanted to say that this is part of a series of town halls that the Urban League has sponsored over the last year, almost year and a half, that focus on our underserved communities where there is a lack of funding, where there's a lack of attention to social determinants of health, education, jobs, etc. And little by little, we are getting the word out that there are needs in our community that we have to focus on. Earlier today, we had one on community engagement, talking about the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, CPACs, etc. It was quite successful. So we're very grateful for this team of speakers that is speaking with us tonight. And I want to thank our intern corps led by Nicola Steelnock and Keziah Anderson this evening, and also Beth Kogan. I see she has joined us. Really grateful for their work. We couldn't do this without them. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nicola.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, I'm Nicola. I'm an intern with the Jacksonville Urban League Center for Advocacy and Social Justice. And we really wanted to focus on environmental issues and especially how they impact minority communities in Jacksonville. So tonight we have a really great lineup of presenters. We have Charles Garrison from the Environmental Protection Board, Lisa Reineman from the St. John's Riverkeeper, and Chanel Davis Bryant from Groundwork Jacksonville. And I'll let them all introduce themselves a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Lisa Reineman, St. John's Riverkeeper, and it's our mission to protect and defend the St. John's River, its tributaries, and its springs. And we do that through citizen-based advocacy. And the only way we can make that impactful and meaningful is if we work together. So I'm so happy to be here with you all tonight. And I'll turn it over to Charles.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Nicola. So I'm Charles Garrison, and I am, as Dennis was saying, I'm with the Jacksonville Environmental Protection Board, and I am chair of their water committee. But I'll talk more about that and everything else, but I'm really happy to be here and I appreciate the opportunity. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Chanel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chanel Davis Bryant. I'm the program manager for Groundwork Jacksonville. And I'll just be here talking about what Groundwork does to improve our communities here in the urban core. And we'll get into that as my turn comes back around.
Oh, and I did want to mention, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll address questions after our presentations. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. And Charles, you're up first.
All right, perfect. I appreciate that. So go ahead and share my screen. Give me just one moment. All right. So again, thank you everyone for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to give our point of view and everything that we're doing with the Jacksonville Environmental Protection Board for everything that we're doing with our local community, our environment, and everything that focuses in this manner around especially as Dennis and Nicola was talking about minority communities, resiliency and everything else. So the Jacksonville Environmental Protection Board we're comprised of 9 volunteer members. We are appointed by both the mayor and city council. We're all confirmed by the city council. You know, we were created by the Florida State Legislature and City Council. We function like an independent authority, like JEA and others, but we cannot levy taxes or issue bonds. So we're really in a regulatory authority. So we have rulemaking and penalty authority, and so primarily, where our focus is environmental issues and matters within Duval County. And this is everything from air quality, water quality, odor, and noise issues. So, you know, many of y'all have heard about the odor issue in the west side and Murray Hill area. You know, when anyone calls into the 630 city and they make any type of complaint, whether it's odor, or noise issues or anything like that, that rolls up into the Environmental Quality Division, ultimately coming to the board for, you know, enforcement and anything else that comes to that point. So when it comes to the water quality, you know, we focus on a lot of different areas, but high level, we're looking at the surface water quality. So we have 130 sampling sites across the county, where we're the EQD in the Environmental Quality Division. That team is every single day and week and month are taking, you know, lots of samples and ensuring, you know, there's you know, particulates are staying in certain ranges and everything else. And in addition, we also manage the MS4 stormwater permits, wastewater treatment, so permitting and inspections, so lift stations and things of that nature. And then, you know, septic tank phase out. I mean, that's a huge issue right now. So we don't have direct oversight with that, but we are working with Public Works and helping them understand prioritization. And so as we really kind of look towards phasing out septic tanks within the county and city, that prioritization is really important because we're looking at environmental, health, wellness, and many other community considerations when we're talking about that. We want to make sure that we are prioritizing the most needy in neighborhoods to really ensure that that those residents within those neighborhoods are really able to have access to clean water and facilities without having to continue polluting into our waterways. So top 4 areas are in the Northwest Jacksonville area. So we have Biltmore, Beverly Hills, Christabel, and Riverview. And the rest of the top 10, they kind of fall on the other side of that St. Johns River area. So, you know, we all know about the gas tax that was recently passed. And so with that, that has freed up a lot of funding recently, and has allowed $100 million, as a recently approved, from City Council, for this year, and 50 for this year and 50 for the following year. So that gas tax increase does take effect in January, and that's really, among many other things, that's really one of the main reasons for approving, raising that gas tax. And so here's a list of, so as we can see, we have over 22,000 parcels with septic tanks within the county. Of the top 10 areas, 11,000 of those are in those top 10 areas. So, as we can see, the top 4, as I was saying, was Biltmore, Beverly Hills, Christabel, and Riverview. So those are the ones that the city is going to be focusing on primarily first, and kind of going through that way. But I mean, there's 22,000 septic tanks across the county that we really need to be working on. So, another big issue that we're all talking about within the county, especially, affects minority communities even more, because we don't have the ability to pick up and move because we have daily flooding. But Lord knows I don't have that kind of money. So we as a city have to ensure that we can be as resilient as possible to ensure that our residents are as safe as possible and they feel like they can live a decent life. And so resiliency, although it's not directly under our purview, we are monitoring many issues surrounding it. And we put on James and the rest of the EQD staff, Environmental Quality Division staff. They put on a great environmental symposium. Our next one's coming up October 15th, and you can register and get the rest of the information at coj.net/EPB. Definitely hope to see everyone there. And it's going to be a lot of great information, a full day. And again, I hope everyone can make it out. So, when it comes to resiliency, I know the rest of my panel will be able to provide a little more context and color around it. But, from the city side, we did, finally hire a new chief resiliency officer, which is fantastic news. I mean, we are taking it, the administration in the city is really taking that next step to ensure everyone is taking it very serious and there's extra focus being placed on it. In addition, Public Works, they are undertaking a vulnerability assessment, which is slated to be completed by the second quarter of 2022. So the mayor just recently presented his budget. $54 million, is of that, the CIP portion of that budget is being prioritized to really improve drainage and resiliency across the city. So, I mean, this is something that affects us every single day. Riverside, San Marco, Springfield, Northwest Quarter, many areas, they see daytime flooding after storms. So resiliency is a very big issue, and it takes very big pockets and big ideas to make sure that we're all staying safe and can live live the life that we want to here in Jacksonville. So another issue that really comes up a lot when it comes to environmental issues and Jacksonville itself is the harbor deepening projects. So again, this is one of the things where the EPB, we don't specifically have any type of authority over or around this issue, but we are monitoring all the effects that may come from it. We haven't taken any type of position supporting or against it, but we definitely understand that this project, for the county and for the area, it will enhance economic development, create jobs, but we also understand that, there's definitely there's a potential for a large environmental impact. And so that is what we're here for. So if and when there's any type of issues, we'll be here to ensure that, we're making sure the right things are happening. Part of that is, and Lisa will talk about it from the Riverkeeper, we do help support and fund the annual State of the River report. And we pushed for a couple of years ago an addition of salinity as one of the elements of the report. So, and that's kind of, what we are looking at in a nutshell. So, we really are pushing for any types of projects dealing with resiliency. The harbor deepening project itself, it has a long way to go, and it still has more, more to go. But if any issues do come from it, we'll be here. And then the septic tank removal project is I think that's one of our pressing issues today, along with just resiliency in general. As we see here see down in South Florida area and everywhere else, where we see red tide and everything else, nutrient leaching into our waterways. The more that we can remove these septic tanks, the better off that we're all being. So that's kind of in a nutshell everything that we're working on the JUPV. So if anyone has any questions at the end, I'll definitely be happy to help them out. Excuse me.
Okay, let me get my screen up real quick. And I want to thank Charles for setting the table so nicely. There's a couple themes that he discussed that I'll be going a little bit more deeper into from the St. Johns River perspective. But again, I want to thank the Urban League for hosting this and for the opportunity to have this conversation, and really want to focus on the fact that for us to protect our river, we need to protect our community. And for us to protect our community, we also need to protect our river and its tributaries. So I'm very excited about this conversation tonight, and most importantly about the work that we will do moving forward together. Speaking of moving forward, let me see if I can move this. There we go. Just a little background on St. Johns Riverkeeper. It is our mission to defend the St. Johns and advocate for its protection. And we do that in many, many ways with investigations. We advocate for solutions. We educate the public. We raise awareness. And most importantly, we engage and involve citizens. For us to give the St. Johns River a voice, we need to get as many people working together towards mutually beneficial goals that protect our community and protect our St. Johns. And as Charles mentioned, one of the tools that we're very fortunate to have, thanks to the Environmental Protection Board, is this, the State of the River Report. In 2020, the last time it was released, we saw that there's some good news to celebrate. We're seeing some improvement with endangered species. We've seen less sewage spills than we have in the past, but still any sewage spills is too many. There's some areas of water quality that's improving, but unfortunately, there's many areas of water quality that's failing. And one is the salinity saltwater intrusion that's so concerning. And that leads to the loss of wetlands. And wetlands are extremely important, which we'll talk about. Also more invasive species, both in types of plants and different types of animals, which are bad for our ecosystem, and pesticides and phosphorus. Phosphorus is one of the nutrients that lead to blue-green algae bloom. So those are all things we need to work on collectively. A great feature of the St. Johns River Report, it also breaks out several major tributaries, including the Trout River. The Trout River is a major tributary to the St. Johns. It also includes the Ribault River and Moncrief Creek, and it continues to have issues with fecal coliform, which is the bacteria from sewage. Good news is it's getting better. Bad news is it's still too much. It's still too sick with that type of bacteria. We're seeing nutrient pollution and also chlorophyll A, which is sort of a proxy for that toxic blue-green algae, which is very problematic. So Trout River has its water quality issues. There's lots of information in the report. You can see this is the outline of the Trout River basin, and these are sanitary sewer overflows from 2019. The next report that comes out that'll be released in October of this year at the symposium, you'll see more up-to-date information on this. But it's our goal to make sure that there's no red dots on this. In addition to the septic tanks that Charles mentioned, the sanitary sewer overflows, there's a lot of industrial stormwater that's in this area. And we're seeing some very concerning violations from some of these stormwaters. We're investigating and looking into that a little bit more deeply, as well as their old legacy Superfund sites. And so the pollution issues are stacked up. There's several legacy things in this area that unfortunately we haven't dealt with as a community. And what makes it very concerning at this point in time, above and beyond just the pollution itself, is this area is very vulnerable to flooding. And so as you start seeing sunny day flooding, if you start seeing more and more water inundating this community, not only is it bad for the community and it's problematic for your homes and your businesses, it's also problematic because you're getting more of this pollution washing in to the Moncrief and the Rebaugh and the Trout Rivers. And so all of this is important to us at St. John's Riverkeeper. It's also important to all of us in the city of Jacksonville because we're all connected. And so one of the things we are focusing on is really generating and focusing energy and effort to not only protect the main stem of the St. John's River, but making sure we do everything in this watershed to connect with the community and find ways that we can work to advocate for solutions to offset these pollution and rising water issues. And the reason being is it's only going to get worse. One of the reasons that we oppose the dredging of the St. John's River is not because we're against Jacksport. You know, we want Jacksport to be successful because they're obviously an economic driver in our community. But unfortunately, the Army Corps projects that due to the dredging going from the current 40 to 47 feet, which about half of it's already done, that you're actually going to see an increase in water levels. In fact, in some parts, it's going to increase 6 to 8 inches. And while that doesn't sound like a whole lot of water, if you live somewhere that's as flat as Jacksonville, and if you live somewhere that is close to this dredging and already is seeing flooding like along the Trout River and the Rebaugh River, then 6 to 8 inches is extremely problematic. In addition, they're projecting that you're going to see up to 12% higher storm surge during high frequency storms. So that's not like hurricanes, you know, that's a 12% increase in storm surge during just normal storms. And in our talking with the Corps, they're like, well, this isn't the entire city of Jacksonville. You don't have to worry about this because it's not the entire city. Most of this increase is going to be at the mouth of the Trout River. Well, guess what? That means that it's going to push water back into the Trout River, into these areas that flood, into these areas that have pollution issues already. And so we as a community have to get our arms around how do we offset this impact? And the rising waters is only part of the problem. In addition to rising waters due to the dredging, it also pushes more the Atlantic Ocean further and further upriver. And so when you get more saltwater intrusion with the dredging, you start doing damage to the grasses and wetlands that also provide flood protection. And dredging is not the only thing that's driving saltwater intrusion, so we can't blame it all on that one project. We've been deepening and dredging the river for more than 100 years. So we've been inviting the Atlantic Ocean in for a long time, and that's just accelerating the impact of sea level rise. So when you see sea level rise projections, we need to add additional additional inches to that because the dredging is going to accelerate those impacts. And then there's also things happening in Central Florida that are sucking fresh water out of the St. John's, and that draws more of the Atlantic Ocean in. And so saltwater intrusion is very troubling it's coming from several different sources. And that's the salt is literally burning our grasses, our submerged grasses and wetlands. These are important sponges for floodwaters. They're also the kidneys of the river, so it's harder for the river to filter out pollution, and important habitat for our fisheries that we love. And so that it takes a commercial hit, plus a lot of us fish recreational, so we lose habitat due to saltwater intrusion. And then we will see more toxic blue-green algae because you're going to have more pollution washing in with floodwaters and less filtration due to the lack of grasses. So it's problematic on levels. In 2017, Hurricane Irma was a wake-up call for, I think, all of us. None of us projected or expected the flood that we saw after that. And the good news that came out of that storm was the city came together. And we are very pleased with the city's report, special report on resiliency. It's more than 100 pages. If you haven't read it, there's wonderful content. But now is the time to aggressively implement this plan. This is not a plan that can sit on a shelf. We need to make sure we're doing all we can as a community. And this will impact all parts of town, especially in the Trout River, where we're going to see waters rising more quickly. We also have to invest in better infrastructure. Years ago, I worked in public works, and it really troubled me to see the lack of just basic stormwater infrastructure in so many of our communities. Also seeing old, antiquated stormwater in many of these communities. So we need to make sure we're investing dollars where we see that all neighborhoods in in Jacksonville have basic stormwater needs, also the sewer and the septic tank phase out that Charles mentioned earlier. Septic tanks, even a brand new septic tanks, doesn't protect our river from nutrient pollution, only bacteria. But when you have failing septic tanks, then you get the bacteria we're seeing in many of our tributaries, as well as the nutrient pollution leading to blue-green algae. And a wonderful solution that's in the resiliency report, and Chanel will be talking a little bit about it with the work at Groundworks, is green infrastructure. There's opportunities for us as a community to invest in green infrastructure in a way that nature complements traditional pipes, and it provides us extra protection during storm events and better quality of life during normal events, like what we'll see on the Emerald Trail as that comes together. In addition, it helps with water quality. So it's a win-win for our community. And the city of Jacksonville, it would be fantastic to prioritize a green infrastructure plan and incentivize it. So it's something that we reap the benefits sooner than later by using nature to complement what our traditional gray infrastructure looks like. And then, as I started at the beginning, it's all about coming together as a community. We are so fortunate to have so many waterways run through the heart of Jacksonville and the heart of our neighborhoods. But with this benefit comes great responsibility and obligation. And the best way for us to tackle these issues is through coming together as a community. We're partnering with White Harvest Farms, and we're having our second cleanup on Moncrief Creek on July 31st at 9 a.m. If you haven't been to a cleanup, it's a great way to meet your neighbors, get to know the community, and get to know each other. So we'd love to see you at that. We also have wonderful river education programs. We like to get in the community because our children are the future stewards of these great waterways. So that's of significant importance. But I just want to end with one sentiment. Together we believe we can make a difference. I know so many people on this call I know are making a difference, and I just appreciate this forum to talk more about how we can work together, and appreciate this time. And I will turn it over to my fellow panelist, Chanel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. First, I want to thank both Charles and Lisa for being such great partners to Groundwork Jacksonville. The Riverkeeper, those educational programs that Lisa mentioned, that's our Green Team Youth Corps enjoys those every year. And the Environmental Protection Board, they are a wonderful funder for the work that we do. So I am going to also share my screen. There we go. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm Chanel Davis-Bryant. I am with Groundwork Jacksonville, and our main project and our mission is to bring about the Emerald Trail, which is a really important component of all the things that we do, and component that is really going to be addressing the work that Lisa mentioned and Charles mentioned around resiliency. So Groundwork Jacksonville, we were incorporated in 2014. We're one of 21 trusts across the country. And our key partners are Groundwork USA, which is the national trust, as well as the National Park Service and the Environmental Protection Board. Locally, we couldn't do any of the work that we do without the city of Jacksonville. They've been amazing partners for bringing about the Emerald Trail and making sure that the funding's in place so that we, Groundwork Jacksonville, being the nonprofit partners, we can raise the private dollars, we can get the design, and we can get the community to be involved in the vision. And then the city comes in and they actually help fund the construction. So we're very grateful for our partnership with the city. And again, something Lisa mentioned, which just really dings every time, is doing the work with communities, making that connection of working with communities and not for communities. So neighborhoods are one of our biggest partners. So Groundwork Jacksonville and the Groundwork Trust, our network, our mission is to promote environmental, economic, and social well-being through the creation of new and restored connected public spaces. And how we do this is with communities and not for our two communities. So specifically Groundwork Jacksonville, we're working to connect our urban lands to our waters. As Lisa and both Charles mentioned, like our biggest focus has been on water throughout this whole entire panel discussion. And Groundwork Jacksonville, we're wanting to bring the waters back to a forefront in our city in a positive way, in a recreational way, in a way that you learn and we explore. So this map that you're seeing here with these watershed, it also shows our vacant parcels. To give you some context, this is just south of the 2019 sanitary sewer overflows map that Lisa showed during her presentation. So we're bringing Emerald Trail, we're looking south of that area and really focusing in on the urban core neighborhoods. So the Emerald Trail is our project. That's Groundwork Jacksonville's project. Everything we do is to support this project and support the community getting involved and being an active voice in how this project is executed. So once complete, it'll have 30 miles, it'll connect 14 neighborhoods, 16 schools, 2 colleges, and 21 parks across the urban core. So we've talked so much about waters, and Lisa, you mentioned stormwater infrastructure. So we know here in Jacksonville, one of our main stormwater infrastructures are retention ponds. So one of the things that we're going to be doing with the Emerald Trail is bringing those more as not something that you drive by, but something that you see and you can absorb and you can connect to water, connect to nature. Even though it's a man-made body of water, we can still connect to it as a space for nature, because you do see birds, you do see waterfowl, and you see turtles around these spaces. And there's something that we should value in our city. Again, Emerald Trail is about improving our parks. Bringing these spaces that are in the urban core that aren't up to par. They're not the recreational spaces that you really want to bring your kids out to, that you want to enjoy. One, we live in Jacksonville, and the lack of trees, the lack of shade. No one wants to go down a metal slide or a plastic slide that's been cooking in the Jacksonville sun. So that's one of the things that Groundwork is looking at. Is that we really work with the communities to come up with our recreational plans. We have vision sessions, and we want to hear from the community of what do you want in this space? What will make you come out and use this space and enjoy this space with your family and your friends? So we want to green up our city or downtown. So we're looking here at Bay and Lee Street, and just the difference that a road diet can make. Adding more green infrastructure to this area will really improve, one, the look of our city, but it also will improve our health of our city. So adding more trees, adding more green space, that's going to improve our air quality. It's also going to reduce, this area doesn't really have a flooding issue, but adding green space is going to help reduce flooding. And these are things that we see throughout our urban core as environmental challenges that affect the health of the people within our neighborhoods. So flooding and pollution. Charles and Lisa really talked about the science behind this and talked about how things that we can do and even nutrients that we need to focus on. So our McCoy's Creek project is really that project that's really looking to address flooding, address water quality, and address resiliency. So McCoy's Creek Boulevard, that's what we see in the middle flooding image. This is not necessarily a picture after Irma. Like, last month with all the rain that we had, this is what McCoy's Creek Boulevard looks like. The McCoy's Creek project is actually under construction now. The project will actually close McCoy's Creek Boulevard to give the creek the floodplain that it needs so that it can flood and recede as a natural system and actually have people move around these neighborhoods in a way where they don't have to encounter these flood challenges. So one of the things that we were talking about when we talk about the environmental impact and how that affects minority communities, I kind of want to bring home the issue of McCoy's Creek Boulevard. It was a 30-acre park, and the flooding continued. And as the creek kept flooding and the community kept asking for ways to address this flooding problem that we have here, the answer was to put in retention ponds. The answer was to take away park space to just allow that to be green space that floods. So in a 30-acre park, the McCoy's Creek neighborhood, so that's Hollybrook, that's North Riverside, Mixon Town area, they have one playground in a 30-acre park. So when we're talking about environmental issues and how that affects minority communities, specifically our urban core Black communities, we really want to look at how that impacts the day-to-day lives of these communities. And for this community in particular, the flooding of the creek led to flooding of the streets, led to parks being removed from this space. And the McCoy's Creek project and the Emerald Trail, we're seeking to bring these spaces back, these neighborhoods. So McCoy's Creek, we're looking at an ecological design. Our vision is having this creek return to more of a natural channelized design with 40 acres of floodplain and wetlands. And we're also going to be daylighting the creek. So that's going to restore our habitat and restore some of our wildlife into these areas, which, to be honest, I've been so impressed with the nature and the wildlife that we have here in Jacksonville, because they thrive no matter what. I'll take back thrive. They survive. They will survive. You can go to McCoy's Creek Boulevard right now and you can see herons, you see turtles. I've seen hawks and owls in that neighborhood. The bird watching is beautiful there. And just imagine what it will be once the ecological restoration is complete. The restoration park, this is kind of a bird's eye view of what we're looking at, some of the recreational spaces and the path of the creek. Important note is that the Hollybrook Bluff area, Confluence Park, and the South Branch Dock, those are actually not in the city's CIP plan. So Groundwork Jacksonville will be funding 100% design and construction of what we call the branches of McCoy's Creek. So we've talked about connecting McCoy's Creek to nature. We also want to connect the people to nature. So the idea that one will remove fences from the park will actually bring the creek to backyards, bring the creek in a pleasant way to backyards, so that people can interact with this water and enjoy nature in their backyards. There's something that we, among the Groundwork Trusts, we say to each other all the time, is that we're about wild in spaces, and we're about bringing people to the wild in their backyards. We have another stormwater retention pond. We'd like to aquascape this pond so that, one, it's serving its purpose as stormwater infrastructure, but it's also connecting people to nature. And it's a place of restoration and resiliency versus trash. These are just some more images of how the McCoy's Creek project are renderings of what it will look like in the end. By daylighting the creek, we'll be bringing fish back into the McCoy's Creek. People do fish in the creek, even though it's an impaired water body. But our project will hopefully improve the water quality, as well as bringing wildlife such as fish back into it. So one of the things that I wanted to end my time with you guys here for this segment is to really talk about why we want to make sure that we're connecting people to this project, why we work so hard to do this project with the community and not to or for the community. And another avenue that we're going to do this is through our Emerald Trail Stewards program. Our idea is to train people from these communities that we work in, that the trail will pass through, in implementing green infrastructure projects on public and private land. That serves our mission of doing with the community by providing jobs, providing job training, and providing jobs within the community so that stay within the community. So the idea behind the Emerald Trail Stewards is that we will train people who live in the community to install green infrastructure on public and private lands. So this is kind of just our table of what our project impact will look like. Each part of these addresses some sort of environmental issue, and it also addresses equity issues within our urban core communities. Access to recreation, access to park space, access to improved air quality, access to improved water quality, and just access to beautiful spaces in their neighborhood. So with that, thank you. That was my time. So I'll turn it back over to Nicola.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to all three of our panelists. We really appreciate it. And I think everyone has learned a lot. I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat yet, but feel free to post yours if you have any, and we'll try to address those before we end the meeting.
I have a question for each of the panelists. What is your biggest challenge right now in terms of achieving, let's say, 80% perfection?
I'm happy to go first. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is motivating people to take action and creating a sense of urgency without a disaster. When there's blue-green algae out in the river, people want to take action. When there's a flood, people want to come to community meetings and talk about it. For us to really make a difference, we've got to create a sense of urgency. And we hope it's before a disaster happens, right? We want to prevent that. So I think it's just that energizing advocates to take action before the disaster happens.
And just to follow up with that, what do you sense is a successful route to that, to creating it? In other words, you must have had, just making this presentation alone, you've already, no doubt, started to get people thinking, the people listening, people out on Facebook, and that will see the YouTube recording, as well as the people listening. Certainly you've already had an impact, but I want to think that you have sort of mentally a box that's got a few things in there that work and that have been working. What are those? Because frankly, the reason I'm asking is we have the same problem at the Urban League. We're trying to get people, and you and I had this conversation yesterday, we're trying to get people aware of certain parts of the city and their needs. And we're trying to get a sense of urgency. So what have you been successful at that makes that happen?
I think one of the most important things we have to do, and Chanel talked about this in her talk, is getting people out in nature and seeing it and connecting and having that value and making the connection to their home. We have this enviroscape that's for kids, but we really should even take it for adults, where you can, you may live miles away from the river, but it can demonstrate if you spill some oil, it can make its way all the way down to the storm drain, into the creek, and so I think it's building these connections, having conversations, and really understand the value, and sometimes paint a picture of what it would be like if we did not have clean air and clean water. But more important, get them excited about, look at what we can have by working together to do our part, and really focusing on future generations as well. The work we're doing, it's definitely for all of us here today, so we can enjoy these waterways and we can have a healthy environment, but it's also to protect these waterways and make sure we're leaving them for our kids and their grandkids, and for future generations across the way. But it's those connections and conversations, and looking at the problems, identifying how bad it could be, but more importantly, how good it could be.
Have you been able to, I assume you're working with the school system in terms of getting the word out to children?
Most definitely. Reaching out to kids is one of the most important things that we can do, and been very fortunate to work closely with the Duval County school system. In fact, before COVID, we were taking every Title I fifth grader out on a boat trip, and to get kids out on the water and see this wonderful asset they have right in the community is phenomenal. And if they see dolphins, it's just tremendous.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've done in the COVID world is put together videos. And so we can put videos and have tools that can go into the classroom, as well as working with homeschoolers and in all different kids groups. So education is not only from just connecting with the river, but also with water quality and having the water quality discussions. So kids understand that our system is an estuary and there's a mix of fresh and salt water, but you need to protect that delicate balance. And so you can actually go to our website and log on to some of our videos, which are educational for all ages, but they're really targeted for children.
Thank you.
And
Chanel.
now, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just following up with.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna follow up on your first question, Dennis, and really, I'd say for us, is awareness. I mean, we're a regulatory authority within the city, and there's probably a handful of residents throughout Jacksonville that really know what Jacksonville Environmental Protection Board is, what we do, and what our powers are, and everything else, and how we could really help them and help their community. So I think that's our biggest struggle that we're really trying to push for. As I was saying, since we're a regulatory authority, for the most part, we're really getting involved with issues once it's already happened, right? So we're on the tail end, and we're trying to, we're there, trying to understand what happened, and now we're really, the staff and the board itself are really pushing to be more preventative rather than to be reactive, right? No one wants to be reactive. We want to be proactive. So that's my big push, as the chair for the water committee, back in, I think it was 2019, Dr. Sonnenberg, when she was on the EPB, she chaired a subcommittee, the SSO subcommittee, and they had almost year and a half, kind of putting, hearing from stakeholders and putting this great report together. And now that I chair the water committee, I've taken that report up because I think we all know within Jacksonville we love creating reports and just kind of shelving those reports, right? But that's not what I'm about, right? And so we pulled that report back down, and the water committee, along with the staff, is kind of going through it bullet point by bullet point and seeing what we can really activate from that subcommittee's reports, and ensuring so we can be more proactive. But lastly is we didn't really get a chance to talk about it much, but the EPB, we have an education ad hoc committee, and that really helps lead and push for funding opportunities through our trust fund. So the EPB, a trust fund was created as we are finding organizations and people that are having issues within the county from our side. They are paying into this trust fund, and there's a strict set of rules of what this trust fund can go to, and not many people understand that we have access to this money as a board that can go back into our communities. We utilize some of that funding for, like I was saying, the state of the River Report, and also, Groundwork Jacks and other great, initiatives that really put those dollars back into our community to kind of really push for, the Duval that we want to see. So
I assume some of that's going into the northwest quadrant of the city where there are some longstanding issues.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, most recently, we did, we approved, James had to keep me straight on this, but $100,000, dollars to groundwork, Jacks and everything else. But yeah, I mean, there's, we are a very large county, and so there's a lot of opportunities where we're deploying those funds. But absolutely, we are ensuring, the staff is very diligent on ensuring, where and how that money is deployed, and the better that we can ensure that every part of the county, especially in the northwest quarter, and yes, exactly right. The zoo, and many other kind of opportunities. And so, we're doing our best to, manage those funds that come into us, to, like I said, to really push for that Duval County, that Jacksonville that we all want to see and live in.
Thank you. Chanel,
Yeah.
your challenges.
Our challenges are really going to echo what Lisa and Charles said. Actually, it's really capturing the bandwidth of people for an extended amount of time. So it's not just a one, I heard this, I tweeted, I liked it, and then continue moving on. I found that the youth, it's easy to capture their attention. No, I wouldn't say easy. Once you grab them and they are excited about it, they'll stick with you. But the real challenge is getting the adults to care, getting adults to care and to engage and to bring a friend, so that we can actually move these things forward. Because while I love the Green Team and the work that they're doing is pivotal and it makes them stewards and leaders for the future, we need these leaders now. They're still growing and learning, and they've got to finish high school, then go to college or go to tech school or do their next thing before they get to the point where they're in our seats. But there are adults around town. There are people around town that have that potential. But for them to see it within themselves and then get connected so that they can be leaders in this space. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. My colleague, Gloria McNair, she's our community engagement coordinator. She created CREST, which is the Community Restoration and Environmental Stewardship Training Program. It's multi-generational. And that really kind of shone a light that, like, if you get youth and adults working together, I think the adults start feeding off of the excitement that they see within their children. And then the youth see, like, oh, they're adults and they care and they value what I'm saying in this space too. And it works back, and it creates an ecosystem for them both to grow and to see themselves as environmental stewards. So I think that's one of our biggest challenge. CREST is going well, but it's still small, and creating more opportunities for adults and youth to work together, and adults to realize that they have a voice in this too. They have more of a voice and more power in it than their 10-year-old or their 12-year-old and their 16-year-old. So that we all need to stand up and do our part.
So it sounds like all of us are facing the same hurdle, and that is getting the attention of the citizenry to help with these various projects, these gaps, these equity gaps in our community. So I urge you to join us, be partners with us as we go forward in our community engagement. I think, Nicole, there's a question in the chat.
Yeah, and if I can real quick, Dennis, I was just going to comment real quickly on that. Mary Singleton, when she was running for city council, was it 1960, I think it was, 60, 61, something around there. That was one of her, issues, if you want to call it that she was really passionate about, is engagement, because engagement equals power, right? Mm-hmm. And the more that we can get our communities engaged in the process, the more power that we can give back to our community. So, it is a big issue, and it's a struggle that we're all working for, and I'm sure we hopefully can find a way to make it happen.
That's great. I'll say amen to that one. That's great. That's what we've been working on here at the Urban League. So Nicola, you have another question in the chat.
Yes. So our question is, what types of inequalities in infrastructure pose the biggest threats during hurricane season in minority and rural communities? And I'm going to add on, and do you know of any plans or projects to address those issues?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind, specifically in like Northwest Jacksonville and in rural areas as well, is just either old infrastructure that just can't handle the amount of water going through it, or not having, appropriate stormwater drainage issues where it's coming. And so I think really looking at how water moves through these communities. So that lack of infrastructure. Then if you don't have stormwater and inadequate drainage in areas where you have failing septic tanks, then you get the combination of too much water, too much pollution, and it's and unfortunately it's really harmful and dangerous for those communities. As far as projects, there is good news definitely on the septic tank phase out side, where we're seeing septic tanks coming out. There's still more that needs to be done, but I think and there are dollars, as Charles mentioned, in the mayor's budget for stormwater improvements. But I think once we see the vulnerability assessment that comes out, especially in regards to flooding, that's going to increase the amount of infrastructure work that needs to be done. Because our systems, even in some of our newer neighborhoods, definitely in our older neighborhoods, weren't designed to deal with rising water.
I'll echo that, really, just in the fact that it's just aging in old infrastructure. And, as Lisa was mentioning earlier, I mean, I have many friends across the county where there are no curb and gutter, and there are no, there is no infrastructure for properly moving stormwater out. And so they just have to, unfortunately, deal with the flooding, and that's not the right answer. So yeah, I mean, we have, we hear it a lot, and but we have a lot of promises to still hold up, when it comes to consolidation, and that's definitely, infrastructure lagging behind is one of those.
What's your answer to that, Charles? What do you, if you were in power, what would you do? What could be done?
It's really starting with the vision, and I think we're getting there, right? But with that, we have to hold to that vision and prioritize. I think those unkept promises really need to have priority much more than they're really given these days, right? We can chew gum and walk at the same time, right? We don't have to all focus on this shiny object over here or this shiny object over there, but to that point is we're going on 60 plus years at this point. It's time to really do what we need to, because if not, the rest of our county is going to continue falling behind. And it doesn't matter how many potential employers that we want to try to bring in here, if their potential workers can't find proper housing or whatever else because of a number of issues, it's not going to help anyone. So
Thank you very much.
So I can't add anything to that. I'm echoing Lisa and Charles. It really is failing infrastructure. Is one of our biggest challenges during hurricane season. Making sure that water can move properly. I think the smallest thing that someone can do really is just clean their stormwater drain that's near their house in their neighborhood, but there's some neighborhoods that don't have that. So it's really failing infrastructure, and then the lack of infrastructure.
Well, Nicola, I think, not hearing other questions.
Yeah, I think we've addressed all the questions that we've gotten. So thank you so much once again to our panelists and to everybody who attended. We really appreciate it. This is recorded, and it will be saved on the Facebook page and the YouTube page. So if anybody is watching there, thank you for that too.
I just wanted to thank everyone on behalf of the Urban League and the Center for Advocacy and Social Justice, for participating in your candor, and for taking on the jobs that you've taken on. They're not easy, they're challenging. I'll leave you with this thought. Take a look at Greta Thunberg's latest video, where she says, you can, and I'm way paraphrasing here, but you can put on a show, you can play a role, but at some point you have to realize that science is moving along, and it's not pretending, it's not playing a game. It's time to take off the clothes, take off the costume, and face reality and do something about it. And I think all of you were willing to say that in your presentations and in your responses. We really appreciate that. I look forward to working with you in the future. And again, thank you, Nicola, and Beth, and Keziah, and all the other interns who have helped us in these projects. Really appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you.
Thank you so much, Jacksonville Urban League, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and being on a panel with Lisa and Charles. I really appreciate you both. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you all. This has been a delight, and I look forward to our future work together. And Dennis, look forward to getting out and boots on the ground, walking the community, and continuing this conversation moving forward.
Absolutely, that's great. All right.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll just real quickly, please, utilize 630 City. If you have any issues, give us a call, because we won't know about it if not. But yeah, otherwise, thank you again, Jacksonville Urban League, the rest of the panel. I hope y'all have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.